Hey everybody, I'm Tim,
And I'm Henry.
and this is Recursive Resonance Podcast number 2. So, it gets worse every time we do it. All right, we've done that like 60,000 times. Only I think 2 of them have made it on camera. All right, today, welcome for... we decided that people probably wanted to see us actually talking as we do our podcast. I'm going to have to remember to speak directly into the microphone here.
Yeah.
It's always, you definitely want it right up on you.
It's weird because, like, I don't know who to talk to. You guys or you?
Right. I'm at a convenient angle. You kind of
Yeah.
have to turn a little bit, but that's
Yeah.
okay. So, getting right to it today. Last time we talked a lot about synthesizers, and it's been a couple of weeks since we did our first podcast, and Henry and I always come together. It's a Friday afternoon, and usually when we haven't seen each other for, I don't know, a week or a couple of weeks or however long, we usually have a million things to talk about, and I would say today is no different. We have plenty of ground to cover, but we're going to try and keep this isolated to a single topic so that our podcast doesn't just stray off in a million directions. I think that's the way to go.
So what are we talking about today, Tim?
So I've been thinking about a few different things over the course of the last few weeks, and I was thinking in particular about this process of making music that we've been pursuing recently, and I think that one of the things that you and I have both encountered already in the process, that we've even addressed, I think, in conversations while making music or whatever, is the idea of ego. Okay, so the notion that as we make music, I think one of the things that allows Henry and I to work together really well is the fact that neither of us are too married to an idea to not hear out somebody else's opinion. And I think that works really well, and we alluded to it in the last podcast, but I wanted to delve a little bit more into that today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's something it's like a phenomenon that's happened, and it's really interesting to me because the idea of collaboration is that, you know, you kind of let go of your own interests for the better good.
Right.
And you can be all technical and come out with your own little riff, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And it became apparent in our most recent song. I think we're going to try to release it this weekend too, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Henry and I have we have belabored, I would say, over this song that we've been working on, Tempest, for a while. I would say it's unique to not only the genre of synthwave, I would say, but I think it's unique to the style of music that we've been writing to this point.
Yeah, it's more. I feel like it's more of a almost like a movie score piece than a standalone, like I don't know, something similar that we've made prior. But the reason we're talking about this is because there's this one chorus that Tim and I both really liked, and it just didn't work, and I had no problem scrapping it.
That's exactly it. And I think that's really neat because even in the other one, we've got several irons in the fire per se right now. And even in the other one that we're working on, I had come up with something that I thought was cool. There were parts of it that I thought were neat, but ultimately you have to be willing to sacrifice elements of a piece that just don't fit the puzzle, right? It's kind of like you can keep it in there for the sake of completing the puzzle, but it's going to be that one thing that sticks out to you every time that you listen to it in the future. So to be willing to, and here's the thing, is it takes time, right? So you're feeling like if you scrap something that you've somehow wasted time,
Yeah.
but you have to be willing to do that for the sake of a better product at the end of the day.
And in my opinion, the riff alone is an awesome riff. Like, we could maybe save it for something else.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm not. Whenever we're scrapping stuff, it doesn't mean it's the end of that thing. It just doesn't mean it particularly works in the scenario. And man, it's a good learning process because I don't think I've really had to do this before. And obviously you always collaborate in the work in the office environment, and you come up with group ideas, and you have to cater to other people. It can't just be derived from one person's opinion. But like when it comes to creativity type of stuff,
Yeah.
I've never really had to like relinquish my creativity, and there is ego involved. I feel, you know, personally attached to the things I make, whether they're good or not.
So going on that same principle, I had a conversation with a student yesterday. Shout out to Adrian. He'll probably end up watching this, so he'll probably be stoked that I gave him a shout out. But and he was explaining to me that he had been reading about Stoicism or Stoic philosophy and the difference between passion and motivation. And I thought that would be something interesting for us to address in today's conversation, because he was what he said essentially was that the Stoic philosophers really were hesitant to embrace the notion of passion because there's an element of emotion that is attached to passion, and that when people either create or react with passion as opposed to like prudent reason, that they're apt to make mistakes, one, and two, apt to defend an ego, like an ego attachment to it, because there's a level of emotion attached to defending whatever it is that you feel about a particular issue. And the idea being that with pure motivation, like passion can motivate people, but due to the element of emotion, it could ultimately undermine your motivation rather than help it. And I started talking about with him, to play devil's advocate, I started talking about it with him to say that I think that with art or with music, it's that much more difficult to separate one's passion from it, because I would say that I feel very passionately about the music that we're making, and it made me wonder if that is conducive to a better product because of the emotional attachment that you have to it, and then B, if there ever really is a complete disavowal of the ego in the first place. That is to say that, like, between you and I, as much as I think that we do a really good job to keep our personal ego out of our creativity or our creative process, can you ever eliminate it 100%? And I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
So when you talk about motivation versus passion, the biggest difference I think in those two constructs is intent. And I would argue against Adrian in this case, because I would say motivation has more intent behind it than passion, because, you know, like you say, passion,
he may agree with you on that,
passion,
by the way.
Passion is emotional, whereas maybe motivation is more objective and intentional.
I think that's what the argument that he's making.
So when it comes to music, then it's actually really easy to divorce yourself from the ego, because if anyone, whether you be a musician or an artist or a writer, anything that requires original novel creation, you know that it's not all ego, it's not all you. There's some type of like creative force that just kind of sparks sometimes. It's without your control, and it's without your intent.
That's interesting.
So a lot of times, you know, it's just about capturing the moment of when inspiration strikes, right? And I would say a lot of the melodies that we've created are unintentional.
Sure.
And it just happens because of some random finger movement that we just did, and we're like, oh, that sounds good.
Right.
Or you hear it in your head randomly, and you figure it out on the keys, and those both of those derive into a main melody that we will record.
Sure.
But neither of them are the result of some kind of motivation or intent, other than the fact that we want to create something that sounds good.
Yeah. I think that with making music, there's something to be said too about artistic pursuits. Maybe in some sense, stoicism or being stoic or having motivation behind it kind of takes away from the essence of of art in the first place. And I don't just mean music, but maybe even painting or sculpting or architecture, because to use it, I mean, to use a historical example, which I hate to do, because I mean, I would love to keep this mostly about music and synthesizers and so on, but I'm a history teacher by nature, and so I think about things in very historical terms. And so with the Romantic art movement of the early 19th century, there was a rejection of the style of art that came before it, of neoclassicism, and the reason that it was rejected is because and Stoic philosophy has its roots actually in ancient Greece in the first place, but the artistic style of neoclassicism, it was argued by the Romanticists that it reduced humans to kind of a mechanistic worldview, where if humans are supremely rational all the time and supremely stoic all the time and only honoring like ancient Roman values like justice and honor and things like that, and reason or rationale, that you lose something, that something is essentially lost from the human spirit, right? And I would argue that the same could be said of applying it to art, because humans are not perfect. Humans are, if we've learned anything of the last century, I would say that humans are not rational. There's a lot of things that people do where they don't really have a reason behind it. And when you and the idea behind Romanticism, as idealized sometimes as an art form as it is, it's at least expressive of something that's akin to the human spirit that makes us human, that is flawed.
I have a good analogy. I think that what you're describing as a Stoic philosophy, maybe I'll label it differently, but I think that's analogous to, maybe in our context, music theory. Sure. Whereas the passion or the emotion or the unintentional like muse that comes in, that's like the creative aspect of it.
Sure.
And you need both. It's a balance of both, because you can't capture the creative side without knowing the technical side.
That is true.
And the more technical side you know, the better you can capture what that innovation or random inspiration sounds to you like.
And I would argue too, it's a balance, because there are people who are genius musicians from the sense of music theory, right? Mm-hmm. They understand music theory really, really well. There are virtuoso musicians mm-hmm. out there, but while they may have technical proficiency with their instrument, they may be a master of their actual instrument, and they may even be a master of music theory. Sometimes something is lost there. Like it almost becomes too technical or mechanized, and then you lose that other side of it, which is the inspirational passion that we're kind of referring to.
Or they're playing other people's music.
That's true too.
Because you have this technical performer, like a lot of pop stars, right? But maybe they don't have the, I don't know what you call it, but they don't have that creative inspiration, and
right.
They end up singing really well.
Yeah. Other
people's music, but you find out they're not the songwriter, they're not the lyricist, and they're also not they didn't create any of the melodies or rhythm or anything like that. They're just
right.
They're just like a performer.
Yeah. That happens all the time. I mean, most pop stars have songs that are ghost written for them, and you actually never even know who actually wrote the song. Mm-hmm. It's just some person, some producer behind the scenes. I think it's rare when you find a musician who legitimately like writes their own music and performs their own music.
Until actually the producing part of it is, to me, what I've realized how important it is.
Oh, it's super important.
Before, I didn't even realize it as an industry or as a separate technical skill. Absolutely. From creating the music itself. Yeah. And now that we're doing it, it's a huge part. It can make the difference between a shitty song and a good song, even if all the notes are the same. Right. And all the rhythm is the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So speaking to our own music and our own endeavor, I would say that the thing that I find important about what we're doing is there's a sense of integrity and honesty in being okay with. I think that when you really capture an understanding of the meaning of the experience, that is to say that the meaning of what we're doing to me is making a connection, being productive while at the same time feeling like I'm doing something that I enjoy and that I find fulfillment and gratitude in. And it's not to say that but I think that the idea is I'm doing it for me, which one could look at as being egotistical, because it's like, oh, you're just doing something to pursue your own passion. But at the same time, I think I would rather have whatever art I produced be a product of something that I want to do, rather than produce something just for the sake of, oh, I'm going to make something that I know other people are going to consume. And if other people do consume our music, I think that that's great. But for me, I feel like that's kind of gravy on. I
think it's only egotistical if you derive your sense of purpose and happiness from other people's positive reaction.
That's exactly
to what
my
you're
point.
making.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, so if you're doing it without any consideration of how, if you're only happy when other people are reacting to it, then you're not doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, exactly.
If we finish a song and we're happy about it, then I think we're on the right track. Right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing you sparked my mind about is the fact that I don't think anything that we're putting out is perfect to my mind, or that I don't want to say I'm not satisfied with it, because I don't want to say that we're not proud of what we're putting out, and I don't want to say that it doesn't sound good. And for people who listen to it and who enjoy it, I'm not saying that it's not good.
Right.
But what I'm saying is there's certain things that, like, as a perfectionist, sometimes I have to just let go of that and, like, just put the stuff out there.
Right.
It's better to do that, in my opinion, with, like, maybe not the most ideal, mixing, maybe not the most ideal art piece that goes with it, maybe not the most ideal way we finish a song, but, like, it's as finished as it could be at that point, and just putting it, like, producing it and, like, putting it out there is a big step to, I think, our development.
I agree. We've talked about before the endless rabbit hole of modification, right? Where you can just continuously make changes to things. And you resign yourself to never finishing anything, because you perpetually are constantly in a state of revision, right? And it's at some point you have to be like, look, we're done. Like, this is it, and it may not be perfect, but it's going out right now.
There's actually, I think this issue presents itself in every industry or in every job. For example, like in law, right? You would prepare for, let's say, your opening statement, and you would, like, keep tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it to the very end. Yeah. And sometimes you're doing yourself a disfavor, because the initial reaction of what you made is the most simplest, like, most carnal form of what you're trying to communicate. Yeah. And it's like writing your own essay. The more you look at it, you stop to see what's wrong with it, and you just you're just making changes for change's sake.
Yes. Yeah. It is, and changes for change's sake don't always, I think, to your point, don't always result in a better product at the end of the day. Sometimes you're changing something that is really good, and I think that could be said, like you say, of a lot of different industries.
For this next song that we're coming out with, the change was deleting an entire chorus, which was like, I felt really good about it too, because after we did that, everything flowed together. Whereas before, it was a huge freaking headache to make it work.
It really was. Adding to that, another thing that's been on my mind recently is, and I think it's tangentially at least related to what we've been talking about, but, like, one thing that's been on my mind is never any endings, only new beginnings. And I love that idea because I think that when we run into roadblocks writing music, where we have to delete things that we've put time and energy into, which we spent hours and hours and hours trying to make this one part work last weekend, and it just was not happening, and it's frustrating, and you feel like, man, I've put all this time and energy into it. But at the same time, as you said, when we finally, like, deleted it, it opened up all these new avenues to take the song in many different directions that we never saw
You're no longer
before.
restricted by this particular chord progression.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, Tim. I know exactly what that chord progression is, and I've memorized it and implemented it into the future.
I already know it. I know it. Henry will never forget anything. He's like an elephant. He just, if something matters, it's in there, man.
I think it's good though to have this like relinquishment of the self, or not even the self, the ego, because the self is different from the ego, right?
Absolutely.
The ego is like kind of what our construct is on a day-to-day basis, and then
right.
Our self is our true self. But like the ego part, it's nice that we're able to. And by the way, it can only happen with another person you're collaborating with that you respect, number one.
Yes.
And number two, like respect from a like technical standpoint as well as like a humanity standpoint. But like you have to have a similar musical aesthetic too. And there are other things like I couldn't do what we do with just anyone else.
With just anyone. No, absolutely.
Because you have to vibe on a certain level of
I totally
expertise.
Agree. Oh, 100% absolutely you do. And two, I think that there has to be a willingness, and you don't find this with everyone today. And we've talked about like, we've talked a bit about admonishing kind of this prescribed experiential like existence, right? We don't want to just live for the sake of doing the things that are, society or culture or whoever else tells you to do, but there has to be a sense of vulnerability, right? You have to be willing to be vulnerable. And if you're, I think, acting as your true self, there's never any reason to fear criticism in a way, because it's like if you're vulnerable and you're willing to put yourself in that vulnerable spot, then there's nothing that you have to defend.
That's a good point. I think artists all do that because they're like whether you're an actor or whatever, a songwriter, you're creating this novel idea and you're letting other people judge you over it.
Absolutely. Which has to be probably really difficult, especially if something blows up. And like, I know that even somebody who is extremely confident, if they read a really terrible review and like a respectable,
exactly,
you know what I mean? It would be hard not to.
It's so funny how I remember. I actually don't read our comments that often, but I remember in the very beginning of our Instagram, and by the way, by beginning it was last month.
It was a month ago.
But some troll was like, "Oh, I bet they don't even use their own synthesizers."
Yeah, that was funny.
And I'm just like, man, the amount of effort that you have to go to just like be a negative person, it's not worth. I don't understand it. You could just not do that and exert zero effort.
Right. Which I don't understand. I've never understood the notion of like, I don't know if people are hoping to get, although who would? I don't know. I don't understand it, so it's hard for me to comment on it.
From what I hear other people say, it's those type of people are just, they see themselves in you.
Sure.
But they have, for whatever reason, fear or I don't know, no opportunities. They can't force themselves to do what you're doing other than to talk negatively about you, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff is irrelevant. We're so far ahead of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just don't. And again, that's not a statement of like, I don't wish any ill on those people. I just don't think about it at all. Really, to me, it doesn't enter into my world. We were talking about this whole coronavirus thing's been going on, and how quickly people resort to really just terrible behaviors about somebody getting shanked in just their Costco or whatever.
Baseline common denominator Neanderthal behavior of
it's uncivilized, really. I just don't understand it. At least not from the perspective of living it, but I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. But fear-based, fear-based, but also jealousy-based, envy. There's all sorts of things that just don't have a place in my world anymore. I just don't feel I have any time or energy to put towards those kinds of thoughts, because I feel like if I want to do something, I'm gonna do it,
So Tim, I wonder if so you've been in a band before, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Two people already is enough ego to deal with, to collaborate with. How do you deal with when a band gets together, like a 4-piece band or whatever? Was your creative process similar to what we're doing now, or is it different?
So I would say it's different, most definitely, in part because the band that I was in was a cover band, right? So we weren't creating things, which is already number one. And I was talking recently about this as well, which is to say that I never had an interest in creating music before, because traditionally I've looked at original music as like something like, who cares, mostly. My approach to it was completely from the external, right? Of like, why would I devote my energy to something that's not going to get me any sort of recognition, right? Or why would I devote my energy to playing something that no audience wants to hear in a live setting? Like, to me, that's the worst, to play. I mean, I've been to see bands who are kind of cover bands, and they'll throw in an original, and I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear your crappy original song. Play something I know. You know what I mean? Like, and so no one wants to be that. But I think playing in a live setting too is different than what we're doing in a studio setting. Not to say that we don't want to play in a live setting, which
100% we want us to play live.
But at the same time, I think that my entire philosophy on it has changed. But to speak to your question a little bit more, even in a cover band setting, it's funny how small group dynamics shift. And I think that in a cover band setting, if I was a band manager, I have a very good friend named Kyle who's a band manager, and I know that if I was him, I would run my bands in an extremely like authoritarian way. And the reason being is because if you have a business where you're trying to make money, I don't want to hear your ideas if I'm the business owner. Like, you don't own the business. You're an employee of me. You're a musician I pay to go out and play the things I tell you to play. And so from a band leader perspective, if you're running a band in that way, in my view, to allow for, I mean, I'm not saying not listen to people's, if they have a major thing that is upsetting them or something like that, but there has to be some discipline in order to make money. Otherwise, you're going to swim around the fishbowl for as long as you can.
There's a hierarchy. It's not necessarily a democracy in a band.
Right, exactly. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
And I think that it works better if there's a hierarchy and you have a band leader, and it's like, this is what we're doing. Here's where we're playing. Show up at this time.
What would we be? We would be
we're
a democracy.
I think we're like what do they call that? There are governments where you have like two presidents. It's like it's not bicameral. That'd be two houses. Bicameral legislature. We're like a
dualistic authoritarian government.
Duocracy, I would say.
Duocracy. Yeah.
Is that a thing? I don't know if it probably is a thing.
I'd say that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
But so far there hasn't been anything we really disagree on.
No.
Like most things, it's like I have no strong opinion over. Like,
I agree.
I don't care.
And there's other things.
Do whatever you want.
I would rather you make the decision on, because like, I don't care enough to. Like, yesterday it was the website.
Dude, exactly.
Henry was like, we want the background black. I'm like, I don't care. I defer to your opinion.
Also, like, you don't need my permission to post a Instagram story. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I'm excited for this weekend, Tim. We have a lot to do. We're gonna probably drop that song. The artwork's ready for it, and we have another two irons in the fire. One of them is gonna be a Japanese katana.
Nice, I love it. Henry and I there's a lot. I mean, here's the thing: is Henry and I try and stay active on social media to the extent that we stay in the forefront of people's minds, I guess, just so that people know that we're still doing stuff. But there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes lately. To give you a little bit of like a State of the Union address here on what's going on with Recursive right now, is we've got some merch that's going to be coming out. It's going to take us a little bit to get all the t-shirts printed, but we have a preliminary t-shirt design that's going to be pretty awesome. It actually features my cat Mochi. So
any excuse to get the cats involved.
Excuse. I'm down.
By the way, I'm like deathly allergic to cats. But the amount of time I've been spending at Tim's house, I feel like I'm immune to them now. And like I've befriended both Mochi and Harrison.
He has, especially Harrison. Harrison's his little compañero. But we got the t-shirt. We got new songs coming out. The art, by the way, quick shout out to Medusa's Comb. Who knows if Medusa is going to watch this, but like Medusa's Comb, particularly, by the way, Medusa's Comb is a duality. Here's Harrison. He's coming up.
He's a duality too?
Medusa's comb is,
It's Medusa and comb.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Medusa and comb. No, but honestly, huge thank you to Medusa's comb because the artwork is phenomenal. We're super, super, super excited about it, and so it looks awesome.
Shout out to Patricky Wee too. Again,
Absolutely, he's designing our T-shirt.
Exactly, yeah.
And he redid our logos for all the website content and so on. By the way, huge thank you to Andre.
Huge thank you to Andre. He's our friend. He's doing our website. He's doing our social media. Andre is the man.
And Andre is the man, and he has worked so hard to get that website going. It's on the verge of launching. I don't think it's launched yet because there's a couple of like last few things that need some tweaking. But other than that, the website should launch soon.
Hopefully, you guys will be able to buy the shirts from the website. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, and two, the website will redirect you to our music.
Two is Spotify, Bandcamp, iTunes, Google Music. We have a distributor now. It takes some time for them to review every upload, and there's certain requirements too. Like you have to have original artwork with your band name and the title name. Anyways, that stuff is getting uploaded. It's in the works. You're gonna be able to buy these songs soon, and I think it's gonna be like $1 a song.
Yeah, 99 cents is what we set it at. So, and then I think that if you want to buy the album, it deducts. I'm not sure how that all works.
Oh,
but
really? It deducts your previous.
I'm not sure about
that.
So
if you buy each single, you can get like the album.
Maybe, I don't know. By then, you'll already own it all, so you won't even need to buy it. But the album will go up at a later time. I think we may sit on probably half the songs before we. I don't know. Maybe we haven't discussed that, but we gotta decide what we want to do with that. But definitely stay tuned. I am now on furlough, which is big news. Yeah. So I am.
That means you get paid though, right? Or is it deferred?
I do not know. I really have no idea how any of this is going to go down. But due to the coronavirus, I am a teacher, and so I am now out of work for the next 3 weeks, which is disappointing because I actually really like working. So it'll be interesting to see.
Recursive.
Yeah, it'll be doing work either way, which is what I have been doing, by the way. I come home and work nearly every day. So
maybe I'll come here during the weekday now.
Honestly, there's no reason not to.
You know, have a lot of free time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, I think this will wrap it up for our second episode. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the things that we talked about. If you do, feel free to like and subscribe, as they always say on YouTube videos. And
that's right,
check
because
us out.
I looked at the statistics. 50% of our viewers are not subscribed, so it would really help us out if you subscribe and watch.
It really would. The more subscribers we get, I know it sounds pathetic and ridiculous, but the more subscribers we get, the easier it is to put content out. And so if you want to do that, that'd be great. If not, that's cool too. Take care, everybody. Till next time.